functioning water and started to put in this liquid crystal, it'd be like going from like a wristwatch up to like a supercomputer, because you'd suddenly have the ability to process information at extreme speeds. And your information storage capacity would be increased because you're increasing the crystal. It's like getting like a hard drive that's bigger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's actually like, whoa, it's like, that's really kind of obvious.
Huh.
If we use our right brain combined with our left brain to deduce this stuff. But if we just look at it from one perspective, where it's just like, oh, just distill it, it's all the same. You know, if you put, by the way, if you put fish in distilled water, you'll kill them. I mean, they can't live like that. It's going to suck everything out of them. So then, water's informed in the earth. And where does water hide in the earth? Anyone know what those pockets of water are called? Aquifers. The aquifers are lakes that are underwater. And above them is what then? Not just dirt, right? Not just soil, but what's between the soil and the dirt and the silt and then those aquifers? Bedrock. You guys heard that term, bedrock, like where the Flintstones live? Make sure everyone's awake. So we've got this stuff, bedrock, right? If we go out here and start digging in the soil, we're going to pull up soil, humus. We might find some sand or some silt. We might find clay, and eventually you hit rock. And sometimes you'll hear people say, oh yeah, it's 6 inches to bedrock on my property or whatever. That rock is solid stuff. Now, on top of it, water can float. We call that groundwater. Right? Like if you dig a well, a dug well, all you're doing is digging down till you find where there's water floating on top of the rock. That's way different than the water that's deep, deep down under all this rock, hiding out inside the aquifer. What's different? Well, because if this guy over here is spraying Monsanto Roundup ready, and it's going to sink down into the soil, it's going to mix and mingle with the water, which is, as we said, a solvent. That water's going to absorb and take in that stuff and transport it around. So you dig in your well and that water fills in. It's kind of like, you ever been at the beach, you dig a hole and you watch how water fills in the hole? That's that surface water, like we're talking about. Same idea. That starts filling in your well. Well, who knows what's in it? All the car exhaust, right? That stuff settles out. All the acid rain, it settles out, and all that stuff goes into the dug well. So we live in a world today where, due to the folly of the people who've come before us, and obviously that's not us, so this, I think, of taking responsibility, like, oh, look what we've done. We didn't do that, right? We didn't, like, pollute the world. We were kind of born into that situation, and we're all trying to get out of that situation. But the world is kind of polluted right now. So the water on the surface is a mess. But this water in these aquifers have been there for a long time. It's like a big storage facility for water. Some of that water's been under there for like 1,000 years. Some of that water's been under there 10,000, 30,000, maybe longer. Whatever you believe about time. Some people believe the earth is 6,000 years old. Sometimes they can almost convince me. Other people convince me it's like billions and billions of years old. I don't know. But the water's been under there a long time. And it's still clean. Because industry's been around for how long?
150.
Yeah. There's not, you know, the water's been underground since before Monsanto. So, and what's nice too is the aquifers are always being recharged. These underground lakes get recharged because rain falls down, sinks into the earth. Now, the first thing that happens is when it hits that soil, even if it's polluted, the bacteria start transmuting a lot of that toxin. They'll break it down, but it might get through there, and then it's going to hit the clays. What do we say clay does? Filters.
Right.
So it starts filtering the water. As it moves its way, by the time it reaches the aquifers, it's typically very clean. It's difficult for pollution to get into aquifers. It's difficult. It can happen. It's difficult. Most of the time, if your water's coming from an aquifer, it's very clean, and you probably know that if any of you have a deep well. That we call an artesian well, where the difference between a dug well and an artesian well is you drill through rock until you hit the water pocket. Different. That's the good water down there. That water in there is clean, and it's been sitting at a constant temperature, incubating and storing information. Our ancestors knew that, so they would found towns around springs, like, for instance, I don't know, Stafford Springs is an example. Might be like the kind of town that had a spring, and people were like, this is good water, right? And so they found the town around it, because they're like, we want to make our blood out of this water. That's essentially, I mean, I'm sure that's not probably the conversation, but you get what I'm saying?
Right.
We see this all over the place. Colorado Springs. I lived in a town called Springvale. Leylon lives there, Springvale. The springs were what people sought out for their water source. Now, it was known, of course, you can drink from rivers. Before pollution, you could drink from rivers, you could drink from creeks, but the best water came from springs. Now, today, the thing is, we're like, what do we even drink now? Because the water's all tweaked. But what's nice is there's all this underground water. So it's kind of obvious then that if we want the purest water, we kind of got to get it from the aquifers. That makes sense?
Yeah.
I feel fair?
Mm-hmm.
We can get water from the municipal system, but we got to really look at it. You guys ready to go into, we'll just kind of peek into what that's about? It's different everywhere. And who knows what it's like here? I don't know. You'd have to look into it. Some towns have wells. Some towns use artesian wells to get their water. Some towns draw their water from lakes, some from rivers, others from a lot of runoff. People, you know, towns get their water in different ways. There's no uniform way. But what they do is add chlorine to the water.
And fluoride.
Some. But yeah, most places they do. They add chlorine because, see, water is the source of all life. Water's the source of all life. If you leave water sitting around, it's going to start to grow life. Will grow in it. Now, that's not great if you're going to be piping water through all these pipes all the time, because the pipes are going to fill up with slimes and algae, and people are going to turn on their faucet and get green water.